All right, Coach Woodfin, thank you for joining us today. I know we're all very, very fortunate to be able to sit here and listen to your wisdom and your time that you've given us this hour. I want to kind of give you a rundown of who's here today. We have Ryan Wood. He's a tactical strength and conditioning coach with TSOC. And if down the road, all these guys and gals can tell you a little more details if they want to, they choose to. We have Joseph Boyd. He's a tactical strength and conditioning coach with USASOC. Darius Ducree, he's a tactical strength and conditioning coach with AFSOC. We have Kelly Johnson. She is a human performance advisor with AFSOC. And then we got Justin Schwind. I'm a human performance advisor with AFSOC. So heavily represented in the tactical community. In saying so, Coach, we want to hear you in 2.5 minutes, Coach Woodfin. Go.
Awesome, Coach. First of all, just want to say thank you for inviting me on to share a little bit about my life and my coaching career. Look forward to also hearing from you and everybody that's on the call here today. Hopefully, we can learn from each other. But for me, I was born and raised in Alabama. That's where I met Coach Schwind years back. Went to Prattville High School. Played a lot of sports growing up. Finally settled on football in high school. Played football there. Was lucky enough to get one scholarship opportunity to UAB. Played at UAB for 4 years, and again was fortunate enough to get a opportunity to go to the next level. I was an undrafted free agent. I started with the Green Bay Packers. I was on the practice squad with those guys for about 10 weeks. I was on the practice squad with the Saints. I got active finally for the Baltimore Ravens, played a season in NFL Europe, came back, played a little bit with the Texans, and shortly after that, that was a span of about 2.5 years. I knew football was over and got into coaching really, really quickly, so interned at Alabama and UAB simultaneously, went to Exos, or Athletes Performance is what it was called back then, out in California. Did 4-year stint there. Went to Green Bay again, this time as an assistant strength coach, 3 years. Back to my alma mater, UAB, as the head strength coach for a year. Southern Miss as a head strength coach, interim athletic director for 2.5 years. And then I went to Kansas for 3 years and just transitioned to the University of Missouri in January. So that's it.
Thanks, Coach. Really, first question of the day I want to throw at you, and this is a multi-layered question. First off, what motivates you daily? Currently in your current setup, where you're at now, obviously you're somewhat isolated. You're not in the normal college atmosphere. So what's motivating you daily? Has that changed from real time at Missouri to right now? And has that changed from when you first started in the field?
Sure. So what's really motivating me right now, during quarantine life is still thinking of ways to serve others. How can I be more creative than I've been? And the way that's happened is my wife and my kids and I have basically created free mindset and movement training. That's what we call it. It's on our YouTube channel, but every day, we actually just ended it, but every day for about 5 weeks, I did a mindset lesson and we did a movement training session for kids. But, I asked myself, how can I give back, even greater during this time period? Obviously, I was doing everything I could with my kids, homeschool, and, spending more and more time with them than I ever have. But that's something we did as a family. So that's kind of what motivated me there. The other motivation was just, how can I be creative and get our athletes to do more than the rest? Right now they're at home, and it's going to boil down to what type of discipline and habits they've developed prior to being at home. Hopefully I could maybe be the spark or the motivation to get some of those disciplines going. But that's been the big thing, just kind of making sure our players' mental state, physical state has been well. And then how can my family and I give back, to our community, the country, the world while we're at home.
I guess, and then has that changed at all from when you started?
Yeah, so definitely that changed from when I started. When I started, here at the University of Missouri, the daily motivation was obviously those 115 athletes and the 40 or so support staff around me. And the motivation for those athletes and the support staff, really what I really think about and what drives me is I have a saying, I coach with the end in mind. What that means to me is every single day that I go do what I do, and like you said earlier, it's the X's and O's are great, but when you coach with the end in mind, you coach in a way that when that player is done with his 4 or 5 years and it's over, they say, man, Coach Woodfin, he made an impact on my life. When they're about to get married, they call and say, hey, I want to invite you to my wedding. When they have a child, they say, Coach, I just had a child. And that takes a very intentional way of going about things. That takes consistency, takes obviously building trust, accountability. But that's my motivation right there every single day is, I need to coach today with the end in mind. And, it doesn't take much to lose a relationship, but it takes a lot to keep one going and to gain it. So I just really focus on being intentional and creating as many opportunities I can for our guys to grow as people.
Thanks, Coach. Coach Decree.
Coach, can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir. I can hear you well.
All right, Coach. I'd like to ask, what's been your coaching progression? And when I say coaching progression, what's been in terms of how you began coaching athletes when you first started, your personality, your coaching style, and how has it progressed to where you are today?
Sure. So I was really, really fortunate, so like right after a really short internship at Alabama and UAB, where I definitely learned a lot. I think that was probably like 3 months of an internship of both. And I learned a lot from both of those places, but nothing compared to what I learned when I went to Athletes Performance. So I really went to Athletes Performance as a really green coach. I had an extensive amount of time playing athletics and training, and I definitely used my time in the NFL to pick the brains of NFL strength coaches and to learn and to grow. But, I was on the front end of Athletes Performance really when Mark Verstegen was still coaching, and his original crew were, the guys running the facilities. And I really got to kind of just sit and watch guys like Darrell Eto, Luke Richardson, Anthony Slater, Omi Osaki, Joe Gomes. I just got to sit, watch, learn, ask. And that really developed my coaching style. And believe me, I tried to poke holes in it. And I experienced it as an athlete because I trained at Exos before I went to the NFL. And that was coming out of kind of a traditional bodybuilding, strength and conditioning program, I guess you could say. So I was really strong and I was really big, but I wasn't a great mover, and was really opened. My eyes were opened up to the holistic, I guess, approach of performance. So mindset, movement, nutrition, recovery, and learned just a ton. And so that really became my style. A movement-based style. We're going to train movement patterns. We're not going to train muscles. We're going to have a very holistic approach. There's going to be enormous emphasis on mindset, the big emphasis on nutrition, recovery, and there's not going to be a whole lot of variance between what we do in the weight room and what we do in the field. Those things are going to look very similar. They're going to match. And the patterns we strengthen in the weight room are going to be the patterns that we try to, be great in on the field. So that's my style. It hasn't really changed a lot since then. I've tried to, bring in things that I thought that may be missing early on. I didn't have a whole lot of experience with Olympic lifting, not something that Exos does a whole lot. So that's something that is a big part of what we do now. The use of kettlebells is a big part of what we do now. The movement stuff is stayed pretty true to just being really, really good at the basics of movement quality. Now, as a person, to answer that part of your question, or I guess as a coach, I think I've definitely, as we all have, matured through the years. We were just reviewing some of my programs at UAB before this COVID. I was reviewing them with my staff, and I'm like, wow, like I can't believe I wrote that. You know what I'm saying? But just probably growth in terms of how the big picture should look. In terms of volume. In terms of intensity, in terms of how those should match up weekly, monthly, yearly. So I think I've gotten a lot more mature in that. And then obviously just the interpersonal skills. I've grown a great bit with how to connect with different people, getting outside of myself, making it completely about others. And so just a continued progression of a person, really. Like I'm a person who never thinks I've got anything figured out. I'm a person, as you heard Coach Schwind say, that I try to sharpen my faith daily. I make mistakes, and I ask for forgiveness. I'm not too proud to admit fault, and just continued growth as a person and as a leader has probably helped me the most as a coach.
Coach Boyd.
Hey, Coach, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, Coach. How are you?
Doing good. Hey, my question really deals with getting athlete buy-in. So just a little bit about us and where we're at. The program that we operate within is completely voluntary to the soldiers. So one thing that we get a lot is, or that these soldiers come into contact with a lot, are, from the time they enter the military to the time they leave, they're told, how to do things, what to do, when to do them, all that stuff. So when they get a little bit of freedom regarding training as an option, this is an option for them. And so being able to kind of capture that that population and be able to serve them is kind of one of our biggest challenges. I just kind of wanted to ask you, since you're recently in a new place coming into Mizzou, or any other places that you've been in the past, what's your strategy been coming into a team, a new school, about gaining buy-in from your athletes first and foremost? How have you done that? I guess I want to, because I know you guys use a lot of technology, so I want to tie in, how have you done that without the utilization of technology, and then how have you used technology as it's been available to you to really tie into getting athlete buy-in?
Awesome, man. Great question. And I'll give you kind of what we've done in all these places I've been. what we try to really hang our hat on. So I think number one, buy-in, people. So try to build a bridge with the people, however that may be. The fastest way to do that is to learn as much as you can about them, because in your scenario, it sounds like, all right, it's not mandatory. Well, if they don't really enjoy being around you, they're not going to come in. So one, do they enjoy who you are, and do you enjoy who they are? So something that we've always done right off the bat is we try to connect with our guys as fast as we can. The way we've done that is through basically an interview process right off the bat, where we have strategic questions that we ask them. Like, who's the most influential person in your life? What is the biggest highlight of your life? What's the biggest hardship of your life? What do you really enjoy about training? What do you not? And then we're really open books. We tell all the same stuff ourselves, hey man, I want to tell you about my family. I want to tell you about my path. I want to tell you about some good things that have happened, some bad things that have happened. And so trying to just explore all those things, I think that's very important right off the bat, is connecting with the person. Connect first. That will open up the door to do some other things that are unbelievably important, and that is building trust. Okay. The fastest way I believe you build trust is your words and your actions always align. You're intentional with that, so you get a person, they come in, you start to know them, and you say, hey, look, if you really want to take this serious, tomorrow at so-and-so, I'll be completely ready. I'll have this ready for you, this ready for you, this ready for you. Well, if they come around and you're a minute late or 2 minutes late, like, forget it. And so being intentional and telling them ways that you want to serve them, and then doing it. And so, like, you do it, like, oh, okay, man, he did what he said he was going to do. You do it again. You stay extremely consistent in that. And now you have trust. Like, you say you're going to be somewhere, you're going to be there. You say, I'm going to bring you an article on squatting, you're going to bring them an article on squatting, and you don't forget stuff. So building trust is kind of the next part after the relationship has obviously been established through, some just basic questions, learning about them. And then after that, I think the fastest way to lead is for someone to seeing you practice what you preach. All right, man, you're trying to get me in here to train voluntarily, and you're telling me that it's going to do this for me. It's going to give me, more energy. It's going to help me to feel better. I'm going to be sick less, whatever it may be. Well, they're watching you a lot, and you don't know it. And it could be in the dining room. Are you living those principles that you're talking about? It could be, in the morning before work, they swing by. Are you in there training, or are you not? And so living what you say for others to do is very, very important, in my opinion. If they see that you really believe in it so much that you do it, it's going to help with buy-in. And so those things are what I've tried to do really, really quickly to create buy-in, and then swinging it back to technology. So what technology does for us is it allows us to really tell them more about their body that they've never known. And so the other part of buy-in is competence. Like, I didn't say competence first because it doesn't matter if you can know everything. If you're a dick, they're not going to care about you. But all right, man, I like this person. This person lives what he's talking about, and he's got some integrity to him. He's told me about him. He doesn't try to act holier than thou. He's got some things that he struggled with in life. But man, I just talked to him about, all this data from a forced plate jump or a Nord board or body composition. And man, he broke this thing down for me pretty impressive. And now I know my weaknesses and I know my strengths. And he laid out a plan for me to really excel and do what I like to do better. So that's what we've used technology for, is to like open up young men's eyes to like how in depth and our competence of their body of work is. It's like while other people are, blanket programming, like we're hitting the bullseye with your needs, buddy, because I just broke everything down that you need, from everything I could think of, from a movement screen to a jump, to a Nord board, to a body composition, to a personality, assessment. And so like I know what you are not good at, and I know what you're good at, and I'm going to give you certain stuff and so like most people have never been talked to with that in depth of information about them. And so it's like, man, it's pretty cool. Like he did all this for me, and he's got a plan just for me, not a plan for 120 people. It's a plan just for me. And of course, in our program, everybody's going to do some of their primary movements. Everybody's going to learn how to clean well, how to squat, the basic patterns. But when you get to auxiliary, movements, or you get to what we call PTP, pre-training prep, everybody's is going to look a little different, based on assessment and evaluation. So I think that's really where technology is going to come in and help you with the competence. The competence will be the last piece of buy-in. So if we kind of go over that, number one, I would say connect with the person. Number two, once you connect with them, you start to build trust. We talked a little bit about ways to build trust. Number three, you live it. You live it. And then for you, once you've got them like enjoying who you are, you break down the competence factor. Like, hey man, like I try to be a really, really good person, but I try to be just as good of a professional. Like I know my stuff, not because I'm arrogant, because I'm a constant learner, man. And I thought about all the things that I need to do evaluation wise with you for the last week. And this is my plan. So that's kind of what we've done, and made some mistakes for sure. But for the most part, we've been able to get guys to buy in, mainly just because there's people that I try to surround myself that really care, and you don't have to fake it, but when you really care about people, a lot of the stuff, and you really love the profession, a lot of the stuff comes natural. Like I don't have to beg my assistants to live right outside of the weight room. Like I don't have to beg them to train. Half of them are competitive weightlifters or power lifters, so they live really disciplined lifestyles. So that's what I would say.
Oh, thanks, Coach. Perfect.
You're welcome.
Coach Wood.
Hey, Coach. How's it going?
Going great. How are you?
I'm doing well, sir. If you don't mind, I got a two-part question for you.
Okay.
First one, and you've kind of touched on it a little bit, but if you don't mind going a little bit deeper, how do you balance in a world that really kind of looks down upon people that, have faith and believe in God. And then in the strength conditioning world, it's a very aggressive world. How do you balance that out? And then second part question, how do you find balance with the technology and keeping your program simplistic in the training methods?
Awesome. Finish writing that down. All right. So first of all, the balance with my faith in the strength and conditioning world, to be honest, what you said, the first part, like a lot of people look down on it. Like I have not experienced that, at least face to face, so like I've always, for the most part, worn my faith on my sleeve and have not been shy about it. And I've never had people, they may have talked about me behind my back, I don't know about that. But I've never like somebody say like, what are you doing? I've never had that. So for the most part, I think, people have respected where I'm coming from. Now, that's a really good question with the second part of what you said, the aggressive style of what we do. I probably have had people that don't know me, people that just have, heard me talk about my faith, and they've never seen me coach. They may be like, oh, Woodfin's, Christian who it's not probably a hardcore program. Well, that's not true. I'm a very aggressive and intense coach. If you really study who Christ was, he was a pretty intense person when he needed to be. And that's really what I'm about. Like, I'm always the same person, or I try to be. Shouldn't say always because I obviously make a lot of mistakes. But there's definitely there's a balance in how I live and how I coach. Like you've been around or you've seen these coaches that they've got the volume turned to like 10, and they try to keep the volume at 10 all day. When they're on the floor, they're loud and they're intense. And, when they're off the floor, you come into their office, they're loud and they're intense. And, well, the reality is you can't have the volume on 10 all day and be real with it. It's just, it doesn't work like that. The body doesn't work like that. And athletes, they know that. Like, they'll sniff that out in a heartbeat, and it's not authentic. So the way that I balance it is I just say, hey, look, I've got some non-negotiables in my life that, I'm going to live by. And part of those are how I coach, and so one non-negotiable is I'll never talk down to a player, and I'll never use verbal attacks on a player. Now, when I have to make a point, and I try not to use foul language, and I never use it to call somebody, but when a point needs to be made, sometimes foul language will be used because I understand the population I'm dealing with. And until they really get to know me, sometimes certain language will get them to stop and be like, okay, I'm listening to you now. And they're not going to respond to, hey, Ryan, hey, quiet down, boy, quiet. They're not going to respond to that. And these guys, a lot of them have never had male figures in their life. And so I have to do certain things to let them know, hey, man, I'm in charge here. Like, I'm going to respect you. I'm never going to talk down to you. But, like, when I'm talking, shut your mouth and get your eyes glued to me. And I'm not going to say it again, and so my style is very aggressive in nature in terms of like the discipline and the command that I'll coach with, and the seriousness, the tone. But how would I balance out with faith? I have non-negotiables. I would never talk down on a guy. I would never call him a name. I don't name call. Like, I don't I don't use anything negative towards a player. My actions in the building, so when I'm not on the floor, that's I think even a little bit more where they can see the balance of the faith. Like I'm asking them questions about their life, and they know they can come in my office and I'll go do whatever I need to do to help them out. So I think the balance comes in with just being authentic, and you have to, if you're gonna follow Christ, and you want to coach with that, you have to, people have to respect you, and they have to know, like, man, his faith is real, but it's a hard faith. Like, he's not it's not, following Christ is not about being soft. And so if you have that notion in your head, that's fine. Like, after you get coached by me, you're going to understand, like, there's nothing soft about it. But you're also going to understand, I care about you deeply, and I care about your soul more so than anything. That's something I'm passionate about trying to teach other coaches. I started something called the Power Conference 5 years ago. And that's what the Power Conference is really all about. Trying to teach coaches how to have that balance, and what's your why behind why you coach. So that's kind of how I balance it. But getting back with the technology, and then more of just the basic movements. What really is my focus in technology and training is this. I try to ride the fine line and have the perfect blend of cutting edge technology, but blue collar work ethic. Because I know one without the other sucks. I was brought up very blue collar and just worked my tail off. And just like I said, very traditional training, bodybuilding, meathead, just rip, and guess what? I got really, really, really strong, and I had some success. I went to college. I went to the NFL. Well, I decided I wanted to study this in college. So now I got an education in it. Like I said earlier, I was fortunate to be around some really sharp minds in this field who opened my eyes up to a lot of the technology that can help us. Because I've been on teams that, like, hey man, we were just tough blue collar, but we weren't smart with what we did. And when we play people that were smart and they worked hard, we got beat. And I've been on teams that, if you're too far into just technology and you really don't know how to work, and you don't, the truth of the matter is you got to get, face to face with the iron, and you have to strain, and you have to be uncomfortable a lot. And if you don't, you can have the perfect high performance model, and little old Southern Miss is going to, run the ball down your throat and beat you, and I've been on that side too, where we played teams in the SEC that I knew, like, man, they've got all the catapult, they have the force plates, they have Omega Wave, they have everything you could imagine. And our head coach, we ran gassers after every practice. I'm talking about tons of gassers. Did I believe in it? Not so much, but we worked, we were tough, and we beat some of those teams. So I think you gotta find what's that fine line. Like, if you get completely blue collar and you just straight work, and you think that's going to help you be successful in an elite area, it's probably not. You're probably going to miss out on a few things. But same thing on the other side. If you're too involved with technology and you just get away from basics of, like, the bar is the bar. it needs to be loaded, and it needs to be dealt with some attitude and some intensity. If you don't do that, you also have very, I think, limited opportunity to be successful. So I've always tried to look at our program and ask, are we doing enough of both of those, and are we on the right edge, so to speak?
Absolutely. Thanks, Coach.
You're welcome.
Coach, this is a personal encounter with you and I want to ask you. So we were at Summer Strong, I think 2 years ago, and I asked you a question. I don't know if you recall this or not, but I said, hey, what are you doing this year? Because the year before you were like, I got da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And this year you said, I'm only doing one thing. What, if you can describe that from that year to year, what changed in you? It might be personal, coaching, or whatever. What changed in you? What epiphany, if you had one, did you have? And do you feel like you were stronger or better because of that, from a coaching standpoint, maybe from a personal standpoint? What was the difference? Because I think it's important for people to hear that.
Yeah. So that year, I remember that. That year, I had been to 5 conferences that summer. So I went to the Sparta Conference in California. I went to CSCCA. I went to NSCA. I went to Summer Strong. And the thought process before, I think, that summer was for one, I wanted to challenge myself personally to try to speak more. It's something I enjoyed. I was like, I'm going to try to speak more. So 2 of those things, I spoke at NSCA and I spoke at Sparta. And the other one was just what I want to experience as much as I can, learning and growing. And, I want to maximize all these great opportunities. So when I saw you, I think it was Summer Strong might have been the last of them. I can't remember the exact date. Oh, and the Power Conference I did that year. So, man, what I realized is these conferences were all on weekends, and it was in the off season. And I'm like, you know what? I already don't have weekends from August to December. And now here I am. I'm filling up every weekend with work because I feel like I need to do this, I need to do that, when I've got 2 babies and a wife at home. And the realization, the epiphany was you know what? Quit trying to I guess be everything to everybody, or quit trying to, if they ask you to come here, do this, or quit trying to chase all this so-called information. And that's what I love learning, and that's really what I was doing. I was just trying to, I got to know about this. I got to know about that. I got to go hear him. Well, not at the expense of missing out of time with my kids. And that's where I made the change of I got to have great balance and trying to be a great professional. But again, if I'm going to live my life, like I told you guys, I want to coach with the end in mind. The end in mind's got to be when my son leaves the house in 11 years now. So when he's 18, he's going to be out. And what has his experience been with dad? And every opportunity is an important one. And I needed to maximize those weekends in the off season. And I couldn't miss 5 weekends for 5 conferences. Just the trade-off wasn't there for me based on my faith and my priorities. So that's something that I learned, and I held true to it, thankfully. And I try to maybe do 2 now, 2 a summer or 2 a off season, and everything else, I can learn from online or something like that.
Yeah, thanks. I thought that was you had wisdom there, and I thought it was important to share. I think.
Yeah, thank you, man. Yeah, that was big for me because I just realized I can't get that time back. I got a lot of years to learn more and more about performance. But weekends with a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old, they go and you're not getting them back.
I think that's a point to hear. Thanks, Coach. I think Darius was going to
Yes,
ask another question, and then I got one more for you, Coach.
Okay.
Let's see if he's here. If not, I'll throw it at you real quick. So we talked about this earlier before we started. So we're in this process, and everybody's a little bit different right now, but everybody's kind of gearing up to see what's next. Meaning, how do we get back to reality? How do we get back to normalcy? Or what does that even mean? Because really no one knows. Because we don't know if this thing goes back up or what. So long story short, with where you guys are right now at Missouri football, how do you see, or what do you see is the process to getting back to, hey, we got to play a season if that's even possible? Now, I know that in this current state where you're talking, where do you get there? How do you get there?
Yeah. So, like you said, there's a lot of unknowns still with everybody. From us, we're basically waiting on the conference officials to tell us the plan. You know, we've heard a lot of maybes, and we're preparing for those maybes and preparing in a way, multiple plans. So right now we got a plan for a June 1 start, a July 1 start, and August 1 start. What are we doing if any of those three things happen? If it happens in the middle of the month, one of those months, we'll have slight alterations. But so there's three plans. From what we've heard, we're on track to start June the 1st. So the SEC, and it may be institution to institution, but I think the Southeastern Conference is going to say, if America doesn't start trending out of control, then we'll start June the 1st. We are quarantining certain guys that are coming in from certain states, not a 2-week, really just like a 3 to 5 day. And after that, the biggest changes are going to be how the sessions are run. So they're going to be run with social distancing in mind, a lot smaller groups, a lot more sessions. If you have a bigger weight room, the more people you can have in your session. We're lucky to have a big weight room, so I can probably would still keep great distance, have 20 to 25 guys. But the programming will be, you don't leave, this is your bar, this is your rack, these are your bumpers, and nobody touches this but you until the session's over. And then there's a deep cleaning of each rack before the next group comes in. So there's going to have to be just protocols in place where you, at least on paper, can say we're doing everything we can to reduce the spread if there is a potential, there. But, to be honest, man, like, to me, so much of this is just CYA anyways. Like, all right, we're doing all this, but our guys, they spend 4 hours a day. Columbia, Missouri is open. Everything's open. So they go out and they go to restaurants at night. Like, they're around anybody they want to be around, and there's what you have to take your temperature before you come in the building and this and that. But, I think the gist of it is, for a couple of months, we're going to have to do a lot of just, things to CYA. But once you start practicing, dude, at this game, I don't see how this is a game where you're physical, you're touching, there's sweat, there's all this stuff. So if you're going to play, just say, hey, man, we're playing. And God, be with us, try to wash our hands. But this whole, going to, the 10th degree on every little minute thing is, I just don't see how it's going to work for too much longer.
No, I agree. Really, last piece of this, Coach, I want to kind of leave this piece for you. So what I mean by that is I call this is the knowledge nugget part of the talk or the Zoom. What I want to do is, if there's anything that you came today you wanted to share with us, I want you to share. Or if there's any questions that you still have left and you feel like weren't answered, or you want us to answer, or have us kind of fill in for you, this is your time, Coach.
Okay. Yeah, I think that the biggest thing that I would want to share is just, like I said, my mission is obviously I look at coaching as my mission field, and I got 120 athletes a year that I'm fortunate enough to have some sort of leadership over, and I'm really intentional with that. And the other part of my mission as a coach, and as I get older, and I think about at the end, for me, it's like, all right, how long am I going to coach? Am I going to coach till I'm 50? Well, each day, each year passes by, like, what have I done to help other coaches is important to me too. And so I think just me sharing that mission about coaching with the end in mind, fifth quarter coaching, I call it, being very intentional about what you do during the 4 years so they can maximize their life for the other 60 years, that they have here on this earth. So that's the biggest thing, just the intentionality and how you're coaching, what type of language you're using with your guys, what are you doing to serve, what are you doing to give back to them, and trying to be intentional with, like, hey, like when this person leaves or I leave, like there's a known thing that, like, I really tried to better them as a person and as an athlete or a tactical athlete or whatever it may be. So that's the biggest thing that I'd like to share, is just coach with some of those things in mind, and said it, like you said, just how strong can we get, how fast can we get, because I think those things are very, very important, but obviously I think there's some other things that trump that.
Well, I appreciate it, Coach. And then, kind of on your time, we're right there at that hour mark. Kind of what I want to do is just, first off, thank you for giving us your time and definitely speaking your heart and your wisdom into us. And I think that's important. Again, it's like I started this thing is, I got time to do this, and I got time to kind of put great coaches out there to hear great messages. And I want to do that. Like, again, like, I'm not making any money off this. Like, this is not about me. This is about the opportunity to hear other people, where they've been and how they've gotten there and how life really happens. And I thank you for that. So thanks, Coach. Wish you the best. I know this is kind of this process, whatever that means, but definitely wish you the best on that, Coach. And thank you again for being a friend and a colleague over the years, and definitely speaking to me and never hesitating to pick up the phone. So
awesome. Well, I appreciate the opportunity, guys. Thanks for having me. Enjoyed chatting with you.
thanks,
Thanks, Coach.